Welcome to the Beef Lab. I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here at the Mecca of Strength and Conditioning, Varsity House Gym. The Beef Lab is an inside look at everything it takes to run a world-class training facility. This is the source for strength entrepreneurs who want to learn more about programming, training athletes, business development, and marketing their brand. We're going to show you how we took Varsity House from a dingy little garage gym to a world-class brand. Hey everyone, Coach Joe here from Varsity House Gym. This is our next edition of the Beef Lab. Today we're going to be talking about building an aerobic base, recovery work, and GPP. And what does that mean? What are those things? And how do we build up a huge aerobic base, or in other words, a work capacity for particular to your sport and the events that you want to get good at, whatever it is. If you're a powerlifter or a sport athlete, how do we continue to develop an aerobic base? How do we recover from the work and activity of your sport? And what exactly does that mean, and how do we put it together? How do we put a plan together for that? Okay. So first of all, what is recovery? Recovery is basically the activation of the body's restorative processes. Everything that was damaged and or used up during strenuous activity of your sport, we have to rebuild those things. Okay? So most of it is the repair and rebuilding of tissue, the replenishment of ATP, the replenishment of neurotransmitters from the nervous system, the replenishment of glycogen stores in the muscle, the liver, and other areas. Okay? And everything that it took that we broke down while working, we have to put back. Okay? So as much as you do things to break down and build, okay, we have to do some things to replenish and replace those activities. The most important thing is just time, right? There has to be some time between bouts of strenuous exercise and or activity. Otherwise you just simply will run into a deficit and you can't repair fast enough. The more fit you are, the faster you will repair and replenish those things, and you kind of get used to it over time. An example of that might be a new athlete might go through a hard workout here at the gym and be very sore and kind of beat up for a few days, whereas that same workout might be very junior level and easy for someone who's been training for a couple years, because their body has acclimated to those processes and their restorative processes are that much stronger, and they're able to recover and then repeat that bout of work again the next day. Okay? So when we're looking at recovery, we're looking at the replenishment of all the systems that were destroyed and used during the strenuous exercise. Okay? Over a period of time, as you exercise more and more or perform your sport activity more and more, you stimulate the adaptive processes of the body. The body becomes more efficient at running some of these processes, more efficient at producing and replenishing ATP, more efficient at producing and replenishing creatine phosphate stores, more efficient at replacing and replenishing and utilizing glycogen stores for energy. And you build up your base over a period of time. GPP, as it's called, is general physical preparedness. It is any work that can be done to improve either any of these restorative processes, the cardiovascular system, the structural muscular system, okay? Improvements in your VO2 max, capillary density, improved temperature regulation, muscular endurance, and hormonal signaling are all parts of improving one's work capacity. General physical preparedness means that I am doing exercises and activities that are non-related to my sport, but nonetheless improving some aspect of my physical ability. So for a sprinter, maybe it's dry land, maybe it's weight room training, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's a swimming session, okay? For our football players, it could be, you know, half hour on the air bike, pushing the prowlers, things like that. Those are all forms of GPP, forms of building work capacity. Okay? So GPP makes up the bulk of the yearly training when it comes to building an aerobic base and or conditioning, as SPP, specific physical preparedness, is generally only done at the preseason and in-season component of any sport athlete. SPP is specific physical preparedness, means that I'm playing my sport. If I am a wide receiver, I'm running routes and catching footballs on a time clock similar to what I would be running during a game. Okay? For soccer and football and most team sports, that means preseason scrimmaging, gameplay, and such, those types of things. Okay? There's only so much of that you can do, especially in the realm of playing competitive sports, right? You can only play so many football games, you can only have so many football practices before the impact of the game itself begins to break down the body. The bigger the base of GPP, right, and the faster you will recover, and the greater your other recovery attributes will be. So over a period of time, what you want to do is continue to build that base of GPP. In a perfect world, okay, in a perfect world, what I'm trying to work on here is improvements in my restorative processes, that I'm going to build up a plan of increasing work capacity over a period of time, just like I would any other plan over a period of time. And if I can do that by building a huge aerobic base as the base of my recovery pyramid, then all my other attributes will be that much better. Just like maximal strength is the base of the pyramid for all other strength attributes, power, explosive power, speed, and sport-specific skill require a base of strength. All of your other recovery attributes and cardio, respiratory, and endurance attributes, okay, conditioning attributes, require a base of aerobic ability. The more aerobically fit you are, the better you utilize oxygen, the better you utilize energy, okay? The more conservative you are. The more aerobically fit you are, the less fatigued you will be, and the faster you will recover between bouts of exercise. So, for years and years and years, a lot of football athletes and power lifters and strength-specific athletes, shot putters, track and field athletes and such, would shy away from doing aerobic work because it's going to take away from my strength. And the reality is that if you are going to run for 10 hours, if you're going to lift 5 hours a week and run for 10 hours a week, yes, you're going to, because you're getting so much more signaling on the cardiovascular side, on the aerobic side, you will take away from that anaerobic ability and those strength abilities. But that doesn't mean that you should totally neglect aerobic development. Our athletes here are very fit, and we spend a lot of time in the off season building their aerobic base, so that as we get closer to the preseason and summer training, we can focus on SPP and the specific natures of their sport, their position, and their own and the rest work periods that are specific to their sport. What building that aerobic base will do, think about it this way. If I'm a lifter and I'm lifting weights and I'm very fit, I'm going to be able to recover. I'm going to be less winded between sets. After I do a few maximal sets of training, I'm still breathing normally. My cardiovascular system is not that taxed. I'm still delivering tons of oxygen, tons of blood flow. I'm removing waste at a much faster rate. I'm utilizing oxygen at a much higher efficiency. And I'm able to continue to push myself through a hard workout for a longer period of time with more intensity, with heavier weights, and such and so forth. Whereas a less fit athlete who is not fit at all will be very gassed and tired and lethargic after bouts of strenuous exercise. They'll take a lot of time to recover, and in the same hour and a half to 2 hour period, I'm probably not going to get nearly the amount of work done as the person who was fit. Being aerobically fit, building a big work capacity, building your GPP is what allows you to push longer and harder and more often. I train 6 days a week. If you're not fit, you can't train 6 days a week. You won't recover enough from those exercises. You have to continually work on your fitness as much as you work on your strength training. Okay? Now here at Varsity House, we call our recovery and aerobic days, we call them recovery days. Now recovery doesn't mean that I'm going to hit the foam roller, I'm going to do 10 minutes of tissue work, and then, you know, I'm done for the day, right? I just did some recovery work. Recovery work is a real workout, and in some cases a very tough workout in the aerobic threshold area. Okay? Now, in a perfect world, I mean, there is no such thing, a recovery day here at Varsity House might look like something like this. 30 minutes of aerobic steady state work, around 70% of my max heart rate, still a very strenuous workout. That's broken conversation. That's, it's breathing heavy. That's consistent work. For us, for anybody training here, we know most of their standards and where they should come in with their numbers. I usually like to break this down into 3 10-minute blocks, and I'll do, say, a 10-minute row, a 10-minute ski, and maybe 10 minutes of sled pulling or something like that. And I have metrics for those things. I'm trying to hit 2,500 meters on the row, 2,500 meters on the ski, and I know in 10 minutes that I should be able to get 10 laps of 150 yards pulling a light sled. That gives me a gauge of output, right? I want to stay somewhere in that 70 to 75% range. I don't want to go too hard because then I'm becoming a strenuous workout and I'm not recovering, I'm working at that point. Then it's a real, you know, aerobic workout. Now it's more of an endurance workout where I'm pushing the limits of my cardiovascular system, and I'm starting to take away from the rebuilding and repair process. So 70 to 75% is the max heart rate that I'm looking for. I like to keep around 70%. That's a breathing percentage that you can probably carry out for an hour to 2 hours even and continue to work. After my 30 minutes of aerobic steady state, I'm going to foam roll and do some tissue work. Maybe about 15 minutes of that. Good foam rolling, legitimate tissue work. Pick some areas that have been beat up and abused that week in that week's training. For our football players, that might, a lot of times that's shoulders, lower back, and hips, groin, hip flexors. So, you know, we'll rotate on it. If you have two to three recovery days a week, depending on your training schedule, I'll pick one of those areas each day and really focus on them and grind them out thoroughly using the lax ball, foam rollers, sticks, rollers, a variety of techniques, sometimes some manual therapy if I'm working on the athletes personally. Then we'll go through an entire dynamic mobility routine. That could be as long as 15 to 20 minutes. We have a huge series of dynamic mobility, from squats and lunges to kicks and cradles and Spider-Mans and windmills, and they got all crazy names for things, but you spend a lot of time doing mobility work and flexibility work, overhead squats with the sticks, shoulder dislocates, and things like that to improve and maintain the elasticity of the muscles and your overall mobility and flexibility. Then we usually do some structural muscular work, and you know, you can call that weak point training, you can call that a muscular flush out, whatever you want to call it. But I think that especially in between bouts of heavy training, like heavy weight training, and or games and sport practice, that it's critical to keep the muscles moving and working. That it helps kind of, you know, in a sense, just make the joints feel good by moving it and getting the blood flow to those areas. So this might be a combination of, you know, for using football, it's fall here, so using football as a primary example. For our football linemen, that might be, you know, band pull-aparts, face pulls, hand walks, some light push-ups and TRX rows, all right, in a circuit to just, you know, continue to develop those areas, work out the kinks. If they're sore, the elbows might be a little beat up and things like that, we will try and work and continue to move to increase blood flow and get the joints loose and moving. Most people, you know, they'll feel good. You want to do things that make the guys feel good, or girls, you want to make them feel good doing those structural exercises. Structural exercises should be just that. They should not be physically taxing. They should be done with very light weights. It's more for localized muscular endurance. You have a guy who has weak shoulders, bad posture, right? Weak shoulder girdle, right? And weak scapular stability. Maybe it's, you know, overhead press with holds, band pull aparts, right? Scapular push-ups and things like that. Those are not going to make you feel very fatigued and sore, but they're going to continue to build up that localized muscular endurance and strength in an area that might be weak for that athlete. Then we like to turn it up a notch and do a little bit harder breathing, okay? And we do an alactic interval work. And alactic interval work is just that. It could be, alactic means that I'm not developing lactic acid. I'm using an interval-based system to work, rest, work, rest, work, rest. So depending on the athlete, we will usually try to keep it similar to their sport. So for a football player, it might be 10 seconds hard on the air bike or 10 seconds hard of a body weight exercise, followed by a 30-second rest period. And maybe they get 10 to 15 cycles of that, pushing a little bit harder and still maintaining some of that aerobic base, right? We're not pushing them to the point where they're muscularly fatigued and their legs are burning and on fire, but we're still working pretty hard. Breathing here, the second thing here is breathing. This is meditative breathing. This is lying on the turf, deep breaths, trying to breathe from your diaphragm, closing your eyes, take a bunch of deep breaths into the nose, out through the mouth, do 10 to 50 fully concentrated, fully engaged diaphragmic breathing. It really does help lower the blood pressure, lower the central nervous system stimulation, and just kind of relax the body for a few minutes. You could take a yoga class here, but we like to just do it right in the gym. Just kind of, hey, 5 minutes, just lay there and relax, right? Trying not to think about anything and just breathe properly from your diaphragm. Feel your chest kind of rising and falling, right, as you breathe and relax. It really does help. There's tons and tons of research showing how important proper breathing is, that most people breathe through the musculature of their chest and gut and not through their diaphragm, and it leads to all sorts of sleep apnea, oxygen deprivation problems, and an inability of the central nervous system to relax and de-intensify, okay? And then lastly, we'll use a contrast shower, ice baths, massage, cryotherapy is real popular right now, or a combination. Myself personally, I hate the ice bath. I'll contrast shower, I'll get a massage, I'll hit a cryopod. There's a couple cryo places are popping up everywhere, and that's another great way to just recover from a bout of serious work. There is nothing better than the ice bath. It's just particularly miserable. But the ice bath is probably the best thing for you post-workout. When you're sore and beat up after a game, right? Especially our football players or even our soccer players who are in their season right now, who are running miles and miles and miles a game, right? If you got a soccer game that goes into overtime, you could run 10 miles in that game. So you really want to make sure that you ice those legs, ice those knees and ankles, and the best way to do it is to get in the cold plunge, to get in the ice plunge for 10 to 15 minutes, okay? So that's a general idea of GPP and recovery, and what a recovery day kind of looks like. Now, how do I, program it into a week of training? I'll show you real quick. It's really simple. You have to pick some cardiovascular standards. Training for cardiovascular improvement is just like training anything else, right? If your goal is to squat 500 pounds and you only squat 200 pounds, well, there's going to be a process between getting from 2 to 5. It doesn't happen overnight. it's not going to build up quickly. It takes months to years to build up that strength. And you have to do it by, continuously pushing weights, rotating exercises, building up your weak areas, and improving the movements and muscles that allow you to squat more weight. Well, the same thing is true for aerobic work. The problem that a lot of people have with sport athletes, especially football players and wrestlers and such, is that they dive in too much too fast, and the conditioning is too intense and too much CNS and muscular system overload, and it's more damage than repair. Start off nice and light, build it into your system, start off with 10 minutes of cardio if you're not used to doing it, and then build up over a period of time. Just like anything else. You build up volume, just like you build up maximal strength. Then you build up intensity, just like you would add explosive lifting and explosive power. And then specific cardiovascular abilities, meaning standards and things like that. Okay? Before I ask an athlete to hit a 1,000-meter row standard, right, which here at the gym is about 3.5 minutes, before I ask them to do that, they've been rowing for weeks. They've been rowing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10-minute rows and such for a period of weeks to build up the acclimation and the resistance to that ability. You have to have some technical ability. If you're going to run, you don't just go out and, hey, I'm going to start running today and go run 10 miles. That's going to beat you up. That's more like work. That's not building recovery. That's not building your aerobic base. That's working too hard, too fast, too much, and that's going to take away from your strength training. So that is inherently the problem that I see with a lot of meatheads and a lot of weightlifters and football players, is that I know I need to do cardio, so I go out and run 3 miles, but I haven't run in months, and that beats my legs up, and then the next day I'm supposed to squat, and then I can't get a good workout in, and I blame it on the aerobic work. I don't blame it on the bad programming and the bad ideology of going and running too much. Maybe I should have just went for a 3-mile walk, and then I would have been able to train the next day, right? So in a typical week, depending on your training schedule, okay, I'm just going to show you what I do. And I train Tuesday, okay, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. Those are my weight training days. And in a variety of different fashions: max effort lower, max effort upper, some repetitious work, a power endurance day for me, right? So here is generally my max effort lower, max effort upper, power endurance, and endurance day. Okay? This is a cardio day, but this is a hard cardio day. Okay? This is building a lot of aerobic ability. This is an hour of intense aerobic work. Okay? So I have 3 recovery days in my week that look very similar to each other, just like the template I laid out here for you. That'll be in the show notes for the podcast. You can take a look at. And 30 to 60 minutes of steady state cardio, a mobility series, some weak point training and muscular structural work, and then either contrast showers here at the gym, which is usually my modality because I'm here and I have to take a shower, so I'll 5 to 10 minutes of contrast work, and some more tissue work. That's it. And then good nutrition, right? And that's really the key. And I'll do that 3 days a week. So, but for me, it might be, let's say 30 minutes. So Monday, I'll do it exactly how I do it. Monday is usually 60 minutes light, and then the rest of my recovery plan. Wednesday is usually 30 minutes hard, right? I'm trying to hit some specific numbers there, and then the rest of my recovery plan. Okay. Sunday is 90 minutes to 2 hours light to moderate, right? Lately I have been on a bike riding kick. So I get up in the morning and I'll go ride my bike for, 20 miles or something along those lines. So whatever I can get done in an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I'll come home And then some light recovery work there. But the focus on Sunday is mostly just getting a longer, extended bout of aerobic work. If you do this the way that I lay out here, it's not going to take away from your muscular training at all. I'm not killing myself. 30 minutes hard is a short period of time, and it's not all out hard. Here I'm in that, maybe I'm in 75 to 80% of my max heart rate. You know, this is, again, this is 65 to 70. This is probably 65, 60 to 65. That's pretty light. You know, riding a bike is relative unless you're hitting a ton of hills and you're really pushing hard. But that's just to just to get a quality sweat. Now on my training days, I'm lifting weights, but I'm trying to keep a fast pace. This is power nose. These are IWTs. That's going to get you breathing a lot. Okay, and you can work this schedule forever, and you just keep pushing these numbers. A little bit more, a little bit harder, a little bit faster, right? So if I know that I'm getting X amount of work done in that 60 minutes, well, the next week I got to get a small percentage more, right? Then in 60 minutes, if I hit 1,000 calories on the Airdyne, then I'm trying to hit 1,100 calories. My next goal is to get to 1,100. And if you do that and you continuously push towards a goal, you're never going to plateau out, even if you're doing similar things, because I'm constantly pushing the effort level further and further and further. And what was hard at 60 minutes, let's say your first time on the air bike or your first time on the row or something like that. Let's say on the air bike, your first time doing 60 minutes, you got 500 calories. That's something that we shoot for here for 30 minutes. And you only got 500 calories and you were pretty wiped and your legs are tired and things like that. Well, after 6 to 8 weeks of training, that 500 calories should be very easy in 60 minutes. Just like anything else. Just like squatting 200 pounds. If I can squat 200 pounds and I squat every week, right? And I deadlift on Fridays. I squat on Tuesdays and I deadlift on Fridays, right? And I squat and deadlift, and I'm training and I'm training. I'm constantly pushing those numbers. In 8 to 10 weeks, I should have some improvement in my strength. Correct? I mean, that's pretty obvious that if you continue to work at something, it gets better. And that really is the key. It's programming it into your system. Most people, they lift, and these are just off days, and they don't do anything. So, again, if you want to get better at something and you want to improve the other attributes of your physicality, okay, spend some time working, go back, take half a step backwards, put a little more time in, work on your aerobic base, and I promise you that your strength attributes will get better because you'll be able to push yourself harder and longer during your strength workouts. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to draw 2 pyramids here. Whoop. Okay. And one of these is going to be my endurance pyramid, and one is going to be my strength pyramid. Okay? And we could break those down into smaller segments. Okay? Okay? I'm going to do strength first because more people are familiar with this and have seen this. The base of all strength abilities, of muscular abilities, is your maximal strength. The more maximally strong you are, the more power you can generate, the more speed you'll have, the better your sport-specific skill will be. So on top of maximal strength is power, right? That's, you know, explosive work. On top of that is speed, right? Rate of force development, true speed and explosive work, right? In order to, the more maximally strong you are, the more power you can generate, the faster you can move, the better your sport-specific skill is at the top of that pyramid, right? With our young athletes, we spend most of our time here. They have no maximal base. They have to just be consistent in the gym and train for a year, for a period of time, a year or two, to build this up before we can generate true explosive power, before we can generate true speed, right? And before that translates to sport-specific skill. In the same respect, we have our endurance pyramid, and the base of that pyramid is our aerobic capacity, right? And the aerobic capacity is the base. Everything builds on top of that. From there, we have alactic work, right? That's interval work. That's starting to push the athlete towards the threshold of lactic acid buildup, but then giving them rest periods to recover. So I'll work hard, I'll recover and get a lot of blood flow. I'll work hard, I'll recover and get a lot of blood flow. And the blood flow will remove the waste products, remove the lactic acid and CO2, bring the oxygen and glucose and such to the muscles, and you will recover between bouts. For young athletes, it might be 4 to 1, right? Or work, rest to work, right? Where I work for 10 seconds, rest for 40 seconds to a minute. Where a more advanced athlete might be able to go 1 to 1 or 2 to 1, right? Where I might work for 10 seconds, like a Tabata circuit, 10 seconds of work, 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. That's inverted, right? That's hard. Then we have lactic work for like more advanced athletes, our wrestlers, and for those who are in sports that require lactic acid threshold training, okay? And then this should be my power endurance, right? And that's the ability to combine explosive bouts of weighted exercise repeatedly. This is going to be like our CrossFit athletes, our wrestlers, right? Being able to do a metcon of weight training exercises, such as a barbell snatch ladder to a burpee pull-up for max reps over a period of time, requires a tremendous amount of power and endurance. You have to have a very good base of aerobic capacity. You have to have alactic and lactic ability in order to even get to that. If you were to take a novice athlete and make them run through an intense metcon workout, you might kill them, right? They might have to go to the hospital. So they do not have the resistance and resiliency to recover from that type of exercise. So what I'll say here is that in the process of building maximal strength, you should be trying to build your aerobic base at the same time, because aerobic capacity work on the lighter side of things, right, again in that 70% range, in that 60-minute and below range, you will not take away from your strength gains at any level. Right? At least as far as we have seen here in the gym with thousands of athletes, we have tons of athletes who are tremendously aerobically fit and who are very, very strong. Now, again, our level of strength is for the sport athlete. If we have dozens of athletes who can squat over 500 pounds, bench press over 300 pounds, right, and bang out 25 to 30 pull-ups, that's very strong for a sport athlete. It might not be elite strong for an elite power lifter, but depending on your sport, you'll kind of modify these just like any other training modality. If I want to increase power, that means explosive bouts of work. Now I'm dipping into my anaerobic mechanisms. I got to start training those mechanisms aerobically also, right, in my energy systems. And I'm going to start incorporating interval conditioning and interval energy system training when I start integrating power development and explosive muscular output. And the same thing here, right? Sprinting is lactic, right? Running a 100-meter sprint all out, or running a 100-meter hill sprint, which something we do frequently, requires lactic acid threshold. So again, depending on the sport and the athlete and the modality of training, when I'm working on speed and I start introducing true speed and speed endurance work, I'm working on some lactic acid threshold training too, so that they can continue to push through those workouts. And then lastly, power endurance. What is sport-specific skill other than power endurance? Football is a power endurance sport. Football requires short bouts of explosive, intense, weighted muscular work, right? Especially on the line, right? Offensive and defensive line, in a repetitive fashion. I have to repeat plays over and over and over again. Hard bout of work, period of rest. Hard bout of work, period of rest. High intense muscular activity followed by a short period of rest. To get to this, I have to climb through the ladder. Just like to get to this, I have to climb through the ladder. Okay? That if I want to build up more speed in my athlete, the first thing I'll do is get maximally strong. If I want to improve an athlete's lactic acid threshold, the first thing I'll do is get more aerobically fit. And I will kind of work backwards that way. So we've taken our football players and our wrestlers, football players being alactic athletes, wrestlers being lactic athletes, right, who need high levels of lactic acid threshold, and we, in the off season, do a lot of aerobic conditioning. So when the time comes, they are very fit and can take the increase in output and workload as we progress towards the season. Okay? So this is a real simple way of looking at recovery at GPP. The idea is to improve the body's ability to restore. And the number one way to do that is to get fitter and to simply just improve your aerobic base. Make fitness a part of your strength training routine, and I promise you that the carryover will be that you will get stronger, more explosive, and more powerful, because you cannot push yourself harder and longer if you do not get fitter. So stop neglecting your cardio, and what I call Coach Joe's theory of relatively lazy. Okay, that's my theory of relativity, because most of it just comes down to A, like we talked about during our mass segment in our first podcast, was just bad programming and not knowing how to put it in. Not enough, right? Not knowing where and when and how much to do, right? Either too much volume, too little volume to have any real positive training effect. And simply just being lazy and not wanting to do those things because I'm going to take away from my gains. All right, so get out there, improve your aerobic base, improve your recovery and your ability to recover, work your GPP and improve your work capacity. So spend some time, pick 5 things that you need to improve on in the gym, right? You got a weak overhead, you got a weak lower back, improve those areas through sled pulling, reverse hypers, overhead Z presses, okay, shoulder work, band pull aparts, and work them into your recovery strategy on your recovery days. Start with 10 minutes. Go for a 10-minute walk. Walk 10 minutes out, walk 10 minutes back. Next week, do 12 minutes. Next week, do 14. When you could walk for 45 minutes straight without getting tired, right? Start jogging a little bit and build it up over time. If you're an indoor, like now here in the Northeast, it's going to be freezing cold in a few months, in another month probably, and you're relegated to working inside, get on the rower, get on a ski erg, get on the treadmill, okay? Get on an air bike, set up a 30-minute stand, hit 30 minutes on that air bike and see where your calories come in, and then every week add 10 calories to that. Do that for 10 weeks, you've added 100 calories. You've added if you did 500 calories the first time and you add 100 calories to that, that's a 20% improvement in your cardiovascular output over that period of time. That will definitely translate to increased ability in the weight room. All right, gang, so I just want to real quick give you a great analogy that I learned from Coach Rob McDonald at Jim Jones, Bobby Maximus, and he put it in a great way that really resonated with me, and it was an easy way of looking at recovery and work and the importance of recovery in your training. And so we talked a little bit about what recovery is, and building that aerobic base, and building your work capacity, and building GPP to improve your restorative processes, which basically means replenishing ATP, removing waste, right? Replenishing glycogen stores, replacing neurotransmitters, and repairing and rebuilding tissues is really one of the big ones there, right? So think of it like your credit card. Everything you do work-wise takes away some of your credit line. And I'm swiping every time I'm working out, every time I flip a tire, every time I lift some weights, I'm swiping that credit card. And what happens over time, right? If you keep swiping and you don't make payments, you max out your credit. And that's what happens physiologically to a lot of people, is that they simply just break down. They push too hard, and they don't do enough to rebuild, replace, and repair, and to replenish the restorative processes. So you can look at debt as, you know, your workouts, right? Lack of sleep, okay? We'll say poor nutrition, okay? And we'll say a workout is a -10. Lack of sleep, well, -10. Poor nutrition, a -10, right? Maybe you had a weekend, you know, maybe you had a stress, right, at your job. Maybe your boss is driving you crazy. That's a -5, right? Your kids, right, that could be a -50, right? That's a -5, right? And you have all these things that kind of accumulate over a period of time. I'm working out 4 days a week, right? That's -40, right? That's 40 workouts in a week, right? I lose sleep 3 nights a week, right? That's a -30. So I have all this debt that I'm building up. I have to pay it back. I have to find a way to balance my credit, right? And pay my bills, okay? So some of the things that you could do, and this should be obvious because we're talking about recovery, is build in a recovery day, right? That's that light aerobic work, that's structural work, that's neurological or CNS intensive, non-intensive work, right? That's light work. And that's gonna give me a +10. I do 3 a week, right? So that's a +30. I get some money back right there, right? Maybe the following week is pretty good. I'm really gonna focus on my sleep. I'm gonna go to bed early, and every day that week I'm gonna get 8 hours of sleep that week. So I did that 7 days that week, so that's going to give me a +70. Now I'm building up some. Now I'm paying down my debt. I'm getting some money. My poor nutrition. I pack all my meals. I have my macros and my micros. I'm taking my fish oil, my vitamins and stuff like that. Right, every day, 7 days that week, I get another +70. Okay, stress. I do my breathing. I do my breathing techniques. Okay, maybe I see the psychologist, right? Get some therapy, right? That's another +10, okay? Right? I ship the kids off, right, to boarding school. Get rid of the kids, right? That's a +10 there, right? All joking aside, right? But maybe it's a night out with the girlfriend or wife. Give the kids to mom, something along those lines, and you need to just get away for a day, you know. And then it's all the little things: ice, foam roll, a night walk, go walk the dog. Those are all +5s, 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 right? And you get the picture. You know, I got a -50 here. The goal is to have a +60 here. Or better, right? We know that we have more than that here. So the goal is to pay back as much or more than you take away. If you train 4 days a week like I do, right? Train hard muscularly 4 days a week like I do, then you need at least 3 recovery days. And I go for a walk or a bike ride almost every single night for a half an hour. And I spend a lot of time sitting on the Aerodyne in my living room, watching TV, doing my notes and things like that for the show. So again, a really good way to look at it. Super simple. Thank you, Bobby Maximus, for that. That was a great way to to put an analogy and a visualization to something that most people have an idea about, which is their credit and money. And another great way to look at recovery and the importance of recovery. Right? So again, I hope that you like what you see. Some real simple tips for improving your GPP and work capacity. Remember to give us a 5-star review on iTunes and click on the like button below. If you're watching us on YouTube, click on the like button below and subscribe to our channel. All right, take care. Coach Joe from the Beef Lab.